Alrighty. All right, this is Sports for Real with Coach Hall. Got a few minutes to chime in before the second college football playoff game kicks off. We got Penn State's going to be taking on SMU in Happy Valley, and they're having a whiteout kind of day in very, very cold temperatures. I'm told it's 17 degrees. Man, that's a very cold temperature for a team out of Texas. But it does get kind of cool in Dallas at times. So this is not something that these players haven't experienced before. Just a quick disclaimer. Yeah, I got on scarlet and gray, but I'm not a Buckeye. Just happenstance. This is the old school colors of where I am today. Playing a little basketball, so I'm trying to get into the spirit. Plus where I'm sitting right now is awfully cold. So the question is, will SMU flame out like Indiana did last night? I'm kind of on the hook for this because I picked Indiana to beat Notre Dame. I felt like if they can get over the name on the shirt of their opponents, then they would be fine. We had two glaring episodes of that during the regular season. When they played Michigan, they struggled mightily before they finally pulled themselves out to win the game. But it looks like Michigan had the blueprint on how to beat Indiana. Then they played Ohio State. They played them nip and tuck until a couple of mistakes caused that game to go out of control. Well, you think that they would bounce back and you think they would have learned from their errors, but you have to go back to those two bad performances to show about the quarterback, Rourke. Rourke is a very good quarterback, but he makes critical errors at the very wrong time. Last night, they got an interception deep in the Notre Dame territory. He comes right back and he throws an interception. He's a chance taker. He took the wrong chance because if he just stood there and read the defense, he had a guy wide open that would have given him a first down inside the 10. He missed that. And after that, the guy ran a 98-yard touchdown. And after that, you knew it was just going to be tough sledding for the Hoosiers. Much talk as Signetti had done, you think that the team would have showed up better than what they did. But if you get beat in the trenches, you get beat in the trenches. Now, a lot of people are making a big thing. Humberto Lopez says, hi, how you doing? If you get beat in the trenches, fine. And I think Notre Dame had a slight edge over Indiana in the trenches last night. But much of the running advantage that they had was from that 98-yard touchdown run. But Notre Dame's defense did corral Indiana's run. I'm fine, Mr. Lopez. Appreciate you saying hello. But I felt like that Notre Dame's defense did the better job of corralling Indiana's running game, and I think that made all the difference. So a lot of people are criticizing the fact that we're talking sports today. A lot of people are criticizing, again, the fact that Indiana made it to the playoffs, especially people from the SEC. I saw a comment that Lane Kiffin made about, this is an exciting game. Well, I don't want to hear none of that from Kiffin or anybody else in the SEC who had a chance to control their own destiny. All he had to do was beat the Florida Gators, and he couldn't do it. The Gators was a struggling football team. Yeah, they started to play better toward the end of the year, but if he was truly a playoff football team, they went into Gainesville, and they would have took care of business. He didn't do it. So about him crying about the excitement level of this particular game, that doesn't mean that just because it was an SEC team, it would have been that much more exciting. We're going to find out about the SEC as this playoff goes along. You got Ohio State hosting Tennessee tonight. Tennessee has a chance, but the way the people in the SEC talk is like they already got it all under control. They're going to automatically be two SEC teams in the championship. I beg to differ. And you're going to see that over the course of these playoff rounds. Jihad says, good morning, brother. Baltimore Ravens going to beat the Steelers today. Hold up, Jihad. You're talking crazy now. Let me explain something to you. Even though I got this Ohio State simulation here, beneath that you can clearly see That's a Steelers shirt. We don't see the Ravens because we know how to defend against the Ravens. You got to run the football and you got to stop the run. And that running quarterback they got up there, he can't beat us when the game's on the line because he can't stand in there and throw it when it's under pressure. His first instinct is to run. And when that instinct is not there and he's resorted to strictly throwing the football, now you got a problem, Mr. Baltimore. So even if you win today, that's fine. We know we can get you in the playoffs, man. We will see, brother. So I'll come back on tonight, and me and you go one-on-one with that because we own the Ravens. We're gonna put a price tag on eBay for you. Maybe you can get a discount for Christmas. But no, I'm just jiving. It should be a pretty good game, but as far as you guys intimidating us, and we don't even see the Ravens, man. And I expect Pittsburgh to win that game. They're going to turn around and whip Kansas City. And we're going to rest our starters in the last game as we cruise on into the playoffs. But that's today at 4 o'clock. But the big thing today is will SMU, Jihad, fold against Penn State. I don't think so. Me, I'm a road guy. Pittsburgh is going into Baltimore today, and that's a perfect example of a road team going on the road to take care of business. And I think SMU has the talent to go into Penn State and take care of business. Now, one thing for sure, Penn State has been playing the best football so far this year. They played pretty well against Oregon. And if SMU goes in there any kind of way afraid or stumbling and bumbling, they might just get run off the field. Then you're going to hear more talk from the SEC about why is SMU in the playoffs. Even if SMU loses and Texas or Tennessee lose, then you won't hear anything from the SEC about who should have been in the playoffs. They'll quietly go away. Ashcast says, amen. And what do you mean? I know what WTF means, but what do you mean is concerning that particular response? Are you talking about SMU going into Penn State, or are you still talking about Pittsburgh? But I think that I do think that Tennessee has a good chance. They're going to have a good crowd there because a lot of the Buckeye fans have been selling their tickets, and that's pretty much a regional game. Those two schools aren't very far apart. GR said, my college team is Alabama. We're not doing so good. We need Nick Saban's not coming back. And the big problem with Alabama is people are complaining that the school is asking for too much money to fund the Neil Collective. But the controversial part of all of that is they're saying that Alabama has been paying their players all along, and Alabama is really complaining because the playing field has been level across the board. What do you say about that, Jihad? Do you think Alabama can compete now that everybody else can pay their players, especially when you're supposed to have the same pot, which is $20 million now? That's what you're going to be able to pay your players with. Will Alabama still be able to be dominant and get the best players now that everybody else is getting paid? You got the number 2 quarterback coming in, but you also have the backup quarterback behind Miro. He's supposed to be transferring to Boston College, I understand. And Miro hasn't decided if he's going to come back to play next year. Do you want Miro back? Miro, to me, reminds me of a young Lamar Jackson. He's inconsistent. Until he can stand in there and throw the football, when it counts the most, Alabama's going to struggle. All right, about what? About is Alabama concerned about staying on top because everybody's got a level playing field? That's what you mean? I think that's what you mean. Look, man, it's like this. No matter if you pay the players or not, all those schools have been doing the same thing. The NCAA picks on who they want to pick on when they get ready to pick on them. But the truth is, Alabama, no matter how you shape it up, has always been the bell cow of the SEC. And it's never going to feel right in the SEC if Alabama's not at the top. Now, new century, things change when the century change. And Alabama still continue up to this point. And I think they're going to find a way to remain at the top of the chain. If they've been paying players anyway under the table, now that you can legally pay your players, the trail for the extra money, it goes away. So it makes it even easier, in my opinion, for somebody to do unscrupulous things like pay players under the table. It's going on in high school. How do you think the same schools keep ending up in the state championship? And it's the same thing. I'm not saying every state they got underhanded stuff, but you have the same cast of characters playing in these championship games in high school every year. If the population of these schools change all the time, is it mandated that one school should win and the next should not? Seems like to me it should be on a rotational basis. You got a good team this year, I got one next year. But it's not that way. You have the same teams playing against each other every year in these state championship games. Now that you have NIL in high school, I expect that to continue, and it's going to shift even more to the private schools because they have the connections to pay these players with these deals. But I digress. Indiana, they disappointed me last night. I thought they had gotten over that name over the chest thing. That's the reason why I think they struggle against Michigan, why they struggle against Ohio State, and last night they struggled against Notre Dame because I don't really think that they mentally thought that they can beat those teams because of the names on their chest. That's what they did in the past. That has nothing to do with what's going on now. And it showed once the game get out of a certain range, then they started to play ball. And you saw that with Indiana 3 times. They overcame Michigan. They couldn't overcome Ohio State, and they couldn't overcome Notre Dame. So now the season's over with. They got to go back to the drawing board. And hopefully they can get another shamrock in their pocket and carry it on to next year. But we'll see. But I think SMU with Kevin Jennings, the way he's playing football, if the cold don't freeze them out, they should be okay. I saw during the pregame when it was 17 degrees, a couple of the players come out for warm-ups with no shirt on. I haven't seen that over the years, where teams tend to do that. But, I don't know. That don't really psych anybody out because Penn State's used to that and it won't affect them no kind of way. Jihad said, do you think Travis Hunter deserved the Heisman or is he too overrated? I think he's good enough to have earned the Heisman, but is he the best overall player? If he was to just play one position at cornerback, no. If is he the best? He probably the best cornerback, but not the best receiver. But the fact that he played so many plays at a high rate, I think he's deserving of the Heisman. But at the same time, a lot of people question that because the race was so close. Gene T even said that he congratulates Hunter, but he felt like he should have won the trophy. But one thing I will say about Travis, and I did say this earlier this week, a lot of people on his case about the antics of his old lady. I will get into that because that's this business, and I don't know why everybody's trying to make a big conversation about the man's business. I don't want to get into that. What I will say, with his 4.0 grade average and the money that he's making in the NIL collectors, he takes that money and puts it back into the Colorado fund to help pays his teammates. And I think that's great because the average guy, they won't do that. So that's letting you know that in this me first generation, this guy here is all about teammates and he's trying to advance. He also knows that he can't do well if the players on his team doesn't do well. So this is the kind of kid that is definitely worthy of the Heisman, if not for that alone. So yeah, I think he deserved the Heisman. But Jinty, every much, just as much deserving as Hunter, and I think that he's going to do well in the NFL. But you say, but players that win the Heisman, they wind up not doing anything in the NFL. Well, that's not necessarily the case. They usually start slow. They start slow because they tend to go to the worst teams in the NFL. They can't change the rosters over as fast in the NFL as they do in college. But you look at a guy like Derrick Henry, he won the Heisman. He started a little slow. He started behind somebody, but once he started to get a feel for the game, he took off. He's got over 10,000 yards and looked like he still got 5, 6 more years in him. With that training and diet regimen he has, he's probably going to wind up in the Hall of Fame. He's definitely going to be in the high school Hall of Fame. College Hall of Fame is going to be there. And if he does end up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I think you need to ask the question, is Derrick Henry the best running back to ever come through? Certainly a debatable question. As far as, what's the name, Baker Mayfield, he started out slow, but he was on a bad team. But look at him now. He's playing good football. So winning the Heisman really doesn't have any direct correlation to the NFL, so you were correct about that. But there have been a lot of players that have done well that won the Heisman. Marcus Allen is the first one that comes to mind. Everybody can't win it. Barry Sanders, a lot of great players out there, man. But I think Hunter's going to do well. I don't know how they're going to use him. I think he might be better suited to play cornerback and then maybe a couple packages on offense. But I don't think that he's going to be hurting too much in the NFL. Where it looks right now, Jacksonville probably is going to be where he ends up. I was Trent Richardson would have did good in the NFL because he ran harder than Derrick Henry. What do you mean he ran harder than Derrick Henry? Also, he had a lot of gaping holes. He played football in Florida. Henry had 12,000 yards in high school when he was in Florida. Okay, did he have more yards than Henry at Alabama? I know Trent Richardson had a good career, and he did place in top three in the Heisman. But what was his problem when he got to the pros? Was he better than Henry then? Is he running less harder? The only person that I've seen that really had a downfall at running back, Alabama, for instance, was what's his name? Sean Alexander. The man was playing at a high level, and all of a sudden he woke up one day and he couldn't do it anymore. That's my only fear about Henry. Henry still got another 4 or 5 years. Um, you say injuries? Yeah, he had a few injuries, but I also think he had some bad luck there. But every time he went to a different place, it didn't seem to work out for him. So he need to change his diet or do something. Matter of fact, the Pivot Podcast did an interview with him. I heard some of the comments he had to make about that. He felt like he didn't get a fair shot. And sometimes you can get into situations in football where you just don't get a fair shot. You know, the best players, a lot of times, be on the bench, be in second and third position. Coach might like the other guy better. You feel like he fits his system better. That don't always be the case. But in the case with Trent Richardson, he should have had a better NFL career. But I don't think he runs harder than Derrick Henry. One more question. What do you think about Bryce Young? I think he's too little. Can he stand in there and throw the football is all I want to know. He does a better job of standing in there than Lamar Jackson does. Yeah, he's kind of small if you can get to him, but the question is, can you get to him? He's been playing a lot better lately, and I think with the right scheme, he has an opportunity to be a pretty good quarterback in the NFL. And the one thing about it is, it's not like he only has 3 or 4 years to get ready. He could be in the league 15 years. Look what Brady played, 20 years. I mean, it wouldn't be wise to play that long, but with the kind of money they're making, I try to stretch it out as long as I can. So yeah, I think Bryce Young is small, but at the same time, you knew that when you drafted him. The guy can throw the football, and if he gets time to throw, he can make something happen. JE says it's rare for running back except for guys like Dixon, Martin, Peyton. Injury is bound to happen. Hey, man, you playing the game, you're going to get hurt. Everybody gets some kind of injuries, and even back in the day, they used to shoot guys up. Now, Martin, I mean, I think if he didn't have those cartilage problems where he's basically bone on bone, he could have played a couple more years. But the man was dangerous. Peyton was dangerous. Dickinson was super fast. So those guys could have did a lot better than what the guys do. Let me rephrase that. These guys today aren't as tough as the guys back then were because of the rules of the game. A lot of times, if you look back at the old films, guys like Peyton and Dickinson, once they hit the ground, then a half a second to a second later, then you get some defensive lineman fall on top of them. They didn't call penalties for that kind of stuff back then, but now they're going to call you for spearing and everything else. But back then, the coach said, get to the football, and those guys got to the football even after the guy was down. Nobody said anything then. But now you call you criminal now if you hit a guy half a second late. So, yeah, it is rare for running backs to stay healthy. And you take a guy like Henry, he's had some injury problems. But like I say, he's able to bounce back because He's on some kind of. I heard him talking about it one time when he was talking about the diet that he has and his training regimen that allows him to stay healthier. And it takes a lot of people off because if you're raised eating red meat, you can't understand how not eating red meat can make you a better performer in athletics. So if a lot of people can get that mindset, then you have a lot of players playing much longer. And with the kind of money that's coming down the pipe, I think that you might want to try to invest in that. If you make it to this level, change your diet and get on that Kobe Bryant track, man, you can do pretty good financially. Little guys like Dorsett was tough. He was so small and was a beast. Yeah, but he played football. Those guys there weren't one dimensional like today. They specialize. If you're a quarterback, you play quarterback. If you're a wide receiver, that's all you played. But back then, in high school coming up, you played both positions and oftentimes special teams too. Matter of fact, if you look at some of the teams that won high school state championships, look at the starting lineups and look how many different places these guys played. They play so many positions because the teams use their best athletes when they had to have them. You don't have enough players to be specialized in each position to be great. Now, it's different now, especially down here in Florida, because, you pretty much getting all-star teams now, and they're winning state championships and patting each other on the back like they've done something great. Completely different. If I can look out my door and say that guy lives there and this guy lives over here and they all play on the same team, that's a whole lot better to me, than some guy who lives 30 miles this way and 50 miles that way, and all y'all come together to meet at the same high school, and you call yourself a state championship. You don't get much credit from me for that kind of thing. Take Teddy Bridgewater down here in Miami Northwestern. He just whipped Jacksonville Reigns. Now, the southern part of the state is set up completely different from the northern part. All the population is generally down the South Florida way. So if these guys want to change schools, they got 40 or 50 options within a 30, 40-mile range, as opposed to you might have in the same range up in Jacksonville, you might have maybe 25. And a lot of those are small schools. So it's a completely different talent disparity unless you want to go a long way to try to get some people, or which you're not supposed to try to get anyway. But Bridgewater had so much transfers available, he had to turn them away. And speaking of specializing, Reigns had a guy number 3. They saw on tape that pretty much didn't leave the field. So if you go back to Travis Hunter, you become a target when you stay on the field for so long. Because if I see you running wide receiver and now you matched up against my best receiver, guess who I'm coming after, buddy? I'm coming after you. And Bridgewater made comments about that number 3. The guy never came off the field, so they attacked him. So yeah, they don't make no more. Lawrence Taylor, Ronnie Lott, Walter Payton, no more. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. That kind of takes me back to that hit they put on Trevor Lawrence a couple of weeks ago. A lot of people call that dirty. Maybe it was a half a second late, and maybe he did lead with his forearm a little bit. But I've seen Singletary hit guys worse than that. He didn't get called for a penalty. Matter of fact, they might try to outlaw a guy like Singletary, and maybe even Steve Atwater wouldn't be able to play today. I know they wouldn't let Jack Tatum play, but Lott would be borderline. But one thing about Lott, if your best player is running that football, he make it a special mission to put a hit on that guy. You talked about Ickey Woods in the Super Bowl. That man was running that football the last couple of weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, so he felt like he had to put a big hit on Woods to change the game. A lot of times when you have these big backs, they enjoy running over little people because they know nobody's going to stick their head in there to try to challenge them during the game. But if you got a guy with the mindset to hit a guy like Woods, that was great. Now, a guy from my school, Jarvis Williams, played for the Miami Dolphins. He had the same mindset. He's going to hit you. And he don't care if you run him over. He's going to get up and he's going to hit you again. He played, 5-6 years, played with the Dolphins and spent the last year with the Giants. But the man was a hitter. Deion, Rod Wilson, Derek Green was great cornerbacks and punt return. Yeah, but that's not the same as playing both sides. It could have been great if they had done that solely, but they put those guys in there at times when they needed to make a play, and they stood up. That's why you see all these guys you just mentioned. They're gonna be Hall of Famers. But I don't know what time it is. We kind of lost track here. SMU and Penn State should have just kicked off. I got to do a little basketball game today. Um, I think I may go live just to show you guys, something different. I know it's kind of hard to watch basketball when championship football is being played. You got the Steelers taking on the Ravens today. Um, Ravens kind of cooled off. Other people trying to learn how to play against the Ravens, but Pittsburgh, they know how to play against the Ravens. But the Ravens, as good as they are offensively, their defense is their Achilles heel. So if you can control the ball and keep that offense on the sideline and score, then you can beat the Ravens. But if you also cannot let Henry get loose, and you also have to contain Lamar Jackson. But it still goes back to the basic formula I've been telling you all along. And you saw it last in the AFC Championship game by Kansas City. You have to attack up the field with your defensive lineman to keep Jackson in the pocket. And the first thing you have to do is stop the run by the backs. You can't try to stop Jackson and the backs at the same time. You have to take away the backs first. Then, when he tries to break outside, then you contain him. If you can't run the football at Baltimore and he can't get outside, and he's forced now to stand in there and throw the ball, then you start to see a change in the quarterback. You saw it last year. He starts to think too much instead of just reacting. There was a couple of times he rolled out. He's trying to look down the field so hard. If he had just taken off, he could have got 15, 20 yards. But he's trying to throw the ball when it wasn't there, and it hurt him. But the key to beating the Ravens is to stop that run between the tackles. And the second thing, when they try to pull it out, then you keep him in the box, force him to throw the ball, then you got the Ravens beat. And until he can stand in there and throw the ball when the game is on the line to beat you, this is the game plan you're going to see against the Ravens when it counts the most. All right. Jihad says, don't forget about Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews. Yeah, but if you notice, Flowers, he gets frustrated during these games. He kind of like throwing many tantrums because he feel like he's open and he's not getting opportunities to get the ball. Pay attention to that today. I saw that a couple weeks ago, jumping up and down because he's not getting the ball. Mark Andrews, a little 5-6 yard out. Maybe they run a little 5-6 yard in. He's not doing anything threatening. Now, if they had a guy like George Kittle that can press the defense down the middle, then Mark Andrews would be more dangerous. But like I said, there's a 3-step approach to stopping the Ravens. And the key is Jackson's still going to have to stand in there and throw the ball. And I don't care how good of a runner you are as a quarterback, at some point, you got to stand in there and throw it when it counts the most. We've seen everything from Jackson, the MVPs and everything else, but we have not seen him stand in there and throw it when he has to. Ravens should use play action because of Henry's threat. They do use play action, but, a couple years ago, I called the Ravens lovingly the Baltimore high school Ravens because they were running a high school offense. I coach high school football. I've seen a lot of film on high school teams, and I know a high school offense when I see it. And they still have some elements of that. If you see them in the shotgun and they fake it to the running back and the quarterback run the other way, that's high school stuff, man. They run that in college too. And that's a form of play action. If he pulls it, most of the time he's running. But if he has a run play option off that, then that would make it more effective. But I don't see him doing too much of that. So if he pulls it, presses the edge, then drop it over somebody's head, now you got a problem. But I don't see much of that. But they do use play action. It's kind of, at first they were using Henry out of the shotgun, and I think that was the wrong thing to do. He becomes more of a threat when you got him in the I formation. Then that play action you're talking about, that's there. I just described you because I can talk to you about football now. Yeah, you can talk to me about football. If you want to talk, we can get together. We can go live one day, or you don't have to go live. We can have a conversation, man. Um, I usually be on 6:30s in the morning, but we out a couple of weeks for Christmas now, so I won't be doing that. Maybe 9 o'clock, but that's not 6:30. Then I usually go on at least once a day. Um, I may get on the day between games with this high school basketball stuff. But yeah, man, I appreciate you chiming in with me. But I got to get ready to get on out of here and watch a little SMU and Penn State before I get out. But just to recap, I don't know what the score is, if there's a score yet with Penn State, because I don't see the game right now. But I think SMU will show up and show people why they should be in the playoffs, and we'll quiet some of that noise coming out of the SEC. But as much as they criticize, this time, the later two games, they're going to have to step up and prove to everybody that their teams should be in the playoffs. Great conference, but everybody can't go to the playoffs from one conference. Otherwise, you don't have a national tournament. So that's just my thought. But until the next time, I appreciate you guys chiming in. JEG Hard. You guys have a great day. And what's the last question you got, man? Have a good one, JE. Come on, man. I got a split, man. Beating around the bush. How do you feel about Belichick coaching North Carolina? Same to you, man. I did a couple of videos on that the last couple of days. So if you go back, you'll see why I said something about North Carolina. There's a lot of live videos, and there's some things that's going on there. But I do think Belichick is a great hire, because basically college football now is professional football, and he's going to run it like a pro team. He's already getting commitments coming in, so he's going to flip that team overnight. I think what he's going to do, he's going to run it just like Dion, and he's going to take what Gian. Appreciate you, man. Have a blessed day. And I think what he's going to do is take them what Dion is doing and try to take it to the next level. So that's what I think is going to happen. So I appreciate you guys, man. You guys have a good day. This is Sports for Real. I'm out.